Waterwight Book 1, Chapter 28. Steady rain made it difficult to distinguish faces, but in the laughter she heard Nick and Jimmy and Teresa clearly among the other voices. She saw Ranger and Floyd in the swirling colors of thunder. In the distance, Old Man Massive smiled. Flashes of light danced across an ocean of water suspended over the heads of the revelers in the mysterious word melody she remembered hearing in the water while transporting her friends from the other side mingled in the air, both haunting and taunting her. Orville's eyes, first jade and gold, then faded, then flashing red through the veil of her emerald scarf, and the exquisite struggle against the shifter commanded the next scene, and Celeste felt as if her insides were being torn from her. She experienced his struggles as if they were her own until he faded from sight completely. The shifter's hiss lingered in her ears like a whispered threat. When the scene transformed again, she was back in her bedroom playing with her new puppy. The doorbell rang and she followed her mother partway down an endless hallway before stopping. Her mother seemed to be miles away when she opened the door. On the other side of the door stood a bearded old man wearing a gray cloak and a wide-brimmed hat that almost concealed his missing eye. In the distance behind him, two ravens circled as if waiting. In his arms, he held a large bundle. "No, don't let him in," Celeste shouted. The old man peered down the hallway at her, his one eye nearly blinding her with the intensity of its light beam, and then he winked at her. "It's just George, the hem man," said her mother, her voice a fuzzy echo. The old man deposited the bundle on the doorstep and walked away, the two ravens riding atop his shoulders as he disappeared over the horizon. "Time for lunch, dear. You must be starving, honey. Wake up, dear. It's time for lunch." Celeste awoke to the sound of growling deep within her stomach. She couldn't remember the last time she'd eaten. The hot sun was just beginning to rise in the perpetually cloudless sky, so she hadn't slept very long. Her heart felt as empty as her gnawing belly, and her eyes, having released their store of tears throughout her fitful sleep, pained her when she blinked. Sitting and staring blankly at her surroundings, she remained motionless for a very long time, her head as empty as her body. Finally, she folded her jacket and opened her pack. Nick had filled it with snoodles and plentiful choices from Teresa's garden. Despite herself, she smiled at his thoughtfulness, pulled out several pieces and ate, longing for someone to share her meal with, and her sorrow. After forcing down a couple of pieces, she packed away her jacket and pulled out her diary. The last entry was her fictional account of her journey across Artesia with Orville. How she wished it had been as easy as she had portrayed it, and that it hadn't ended so tragically. The little lock on her diary no longer worked, which was good since Celeste had lost the key somewhere in her travels. It didn't matter anyway. The lock never stopped others from using the pages as they wished. She opened the book to the last entry. It wasn't hers. "Roses are red and violets are blue. Please return soon because I miss you." She had never seen Nick's handwriting before, but knew right away it was his. Butterflies replaced the growling in her stomach, and she laughed aloud. The sound of her voice surprised her. She read on. Please forgive me when you read this. I know it's wrong to mess with other people's stuff, but I promise I didn't read anything else in your book. I just didn't know when I'd be able to talk to you about what happened after you left to find Chimney and Orville, and I figured if you never came back again, it wouldn't matter anyway. You're at the Overleaders now, and I'm angry and afraid. I'm so sorry about the way they treated Orville. I tried to stop them, but they threatened me with a visit to the Overleader if I didn't back off. And people just aren't the same after they come back. But you're different. You're stronger and braver than anyone. When you come back, everything will be all right. Just promise you won't be mad at me for writing in your book, okay? Anyway, when you left, Blanche met with the other houses and they decided it was your fault things were happening again. The ground shook here in the village really bad while you were gone, and I couldn't stop it. Nothing opened up, like where we were searching, but it scared everyone, and they said it was because you brought bad things with you. That's when they locked Ranger and Floyd in the back and sent Bridger to the nightmare house. Enid got away, but I don't know where she is. They're keeping the kids away from Teresa again, but I saw Maddie and Mac sneak out the other night to meet her in the garden. Maddie sat between them and held their hands. No one said a word, but I could see Mac and Teresa smiling, like they were talking. I'll have to ask Maddie about her power. So I don't know how we'll do it when you come back from the Overleaders, but I'll help you however I can, even if they send me there next, because I think you're really special and you came here for a reason. I should have stopped time when you came back with Chimney and Orville, but I was so happy to see you that I forgot about the villagers. Sorry about the stupid poem. It's the only one I could remember from before the shaking happened. Celeste reread the poem several times before closing the book. It seemed Nick believed in her too, but she was no closer to an answer than when she first left the children's home on the other side. She would not return to the village without discovering how to stop the water. Old Man Massive was smiling in her dream. Perhaps he knew more now, but even if he didn't, he deserved to know what had happened since her last visit. She'd be there and back to the village in no time, and the Overleader would never discover she had broken her oath. That ends chapter 28 of